Welcome to the JR Podcast. This is episode 1, and it's only been released a year and 2 months since I first announced the show. The JR Podcast is all things Anarchy Minecraft related. It's out every week with well-known guests and less-known guests. The most important part is that it's unedited. So let's jump straight into episode 1 with YellowstoneJoe. Today we're joined by YellowstoneJoe, who is a player since 2014, who is known for many things, such as his solo-based layouts, the many bases that he's been in with some very famous names, and also his involvement in the post-Russia drama.
Hello.
Hello, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. I want to say thanks for inviting me to do this.
No worries, that's fine. I'm glad to have you on, especially as the first guest. Cool, so let's get straight into this. So you joined 2B2T around January 2014?
Yeah, I think I discovered 2B in a gaming subreddit on reddit.com. I recall reading some article about some Minecraft server, and in the comments on Reddit, people were talking about how dangerous spawn was, and I was just intrigued by the whole thing, the whole idea of a server without rules, no borders, and that everybody's just free to, just complete freedom to do what they want. And I have two memories. I had searched Google about the server to look for the IP, and I had stumbled across a YouTube video by a guy named Dr. Zombie, and I watched his episode. He had this little guide about how to get started on 2B, and I watched it very carefully. Yeah. By the way, I have huge respect for Dr. Zombie. I never reached out to him or anything, but a huge fan of that guy. He basically gave me my start on 2B with his little, and if you watch the video today, it seems pretty basic. It seems like, his advanced Minecraft, to our perspective now, doesn't seem that advanced. But yeah, I went in and I took his directions about how to get out of spawn and how to get going, and I logged into the server, and I started surviving.
Nice, yeah. I'm a big fan of Dr. Zombie. Kind of watched a lot of his videos, but yeah, same as you. I've never really reached out to him, so maybe that would change after today. But yeah, he's a great guy. So 2014. So what was your first impressions of 2B2T when you joined? Because as you said, you saw. I'm guessing it was one of the renders of Spawn around 2014. I think on the gaming subreddit. Is that what you saw?
I thought it was an article or something that someone had posted.
Okay.
And I remember somebody had wrote a narrative about going onto the server and traveling out with friends. And when I logged in, of course, Spawn was even more of a wasteland than I'd anticipated. We look at Spawn there now, and it's far, far, far more desolate than then. But even at the time, it just looked spectacularly ruined. You can still, from 0-0, there was very little solid ground. It was bedrock at the bottom and withers all over. So yeah, and I decided to make my first base to get started, and I traveled about 2K south of Spawn and dug a hole, called it Base Camp Alpha.
Got my impressive base.
Yeah. And of course, at the time, I had no experience playing with like hacks or X-ray or anything. So
okay, so you were straight vanilla then. You joined vanilla.
I was straight vanilla for like almost the first year.
Nice. Okay.
And I thought I was hiding stuff. So at the time, because I'd never played with hacks, I didn't know how vulnerable my stuff was to being found. Yeah, so I spent the first couple weeks getting geared up, and then I decided to transfer out, past 100K to build my first real base camp Bravo. I have memories of in early 2014 strip mining for diamonds, 2K from Spawn, and watching the chat roll by. 2B, especially then, it was more spectacular then than it is now. But 2V fully lived up to its reputation for some of the most foul stuff on chat possible. I recall conversations between Cold Wave and Pop Bob and others. Yeah, they're pretty interesting to see. And of course, the spam. There wasn't a really good ignore command at the time, so it was either you're totally blind and saw no chat, or you just endured it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I remember that. Especially with I suppose BibleBot was quite newer, but definitely some characters like BuildSmash. if you
Oh,
remember BuildSmash.
I'll never forget BuildSmash.
Yeah,
That
who
guy
was
was really interesting. I mean, the guy could, yeah, what was that intro he had about
so he would kick up a
Stalin,
bunch of
Pol
names.
Pot,
That's it.
Hitler? Yeah.
Yeah, all atheists.
All it is. And
Yeah.
to this day, I don't know for sure. Was he a real believer or a hardworking troll? I
He
don't
knew
know.
he knew his stuff. He knew his stuff. I got to give him that. Like there were some people, definitely some religious people that called him on the things he was saying and what he was replying with. Like he's a guy who definitely kind of was either kind of religious, I guess, or studied religion. But yeah, he knew his stuff.
He knew his stuff. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had some conversations about him about details, and I got the impression he definitely knew his stuff. That was very entertaining.
Cool. So back to your kind of initial days on 2B2T. So you've kind of moved further out from your very modest first base to create a base camp out Bravo, sorry, which was essentially your first base. Obviously, basing with you in other times, I understand that you generally kind of build the same starter house in all your bases. Was that also the case for your first base camp Bravo? Was that what kind of led you to building the same thing at all bases?
Yeah, although the Bravo house, I tried to take a shortcut and build it not to my normal dimensions, and I always hated that house because of it. Yeah, from Bravo, I stayed at the Bravo location. It's a random place. I stopped in the night to hide from monsters, dug a hole in the ground, and then started building a base there in Extreme Hills, which is a horrible biome to build in for many people. Yeah, so I was there for several weeks, kind of made a functioning base, and then I decided to, move an extra 150K out. Back then I was not trying to join any groups. I was just trying to, I was just enjoying the challenge of trying to survive without getting your stuff wrecked. And when I moved to Base Camp Charlie, and I realized, well, the whole name of the game here is not to get found through the nether.
Yeah.
And I realized that's when I had no choice. I had to get some x-ray. So when I scoped out the next location, I could carefully view the nether side to make sure, I wasn't going to be putting my base right on some main path or something. So yeah, then Base Camp Charlie, I think I ended up making that probably was it April of 2014.
Okay, so quite quick then between your first base to the second base, and it's what, like 4 months?
Yeah, and I think if I recall, I had some spurts of playing back then. You know how it goes. People often with 2B or Minecraft or any hobby, you let it slide. You put it off for a few weeks, you don't touch it, then you come back to it, and you spend several days at it intensively.
Yeah,
It ebbs
yeah.
and flows.
Yeah,
So,
no, I definitely know that feeling.
so I think I had a lot of time on Bravo, but on calendar time, it wasn't that much.
Okay,
So,
yeah, Minecraft time always seems to be a lot more than calendar time. I like that phrase. I might have to steal that. Because yeah, like I remember being at some bases and kind of them expanding really quickly, and it feels like you've been working on it forever. And then you kind of realize you look at your screenshots and it's like, oh, we've been here for like 4 days, but we've done so much.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's true. So you went from basing solo to building your first two major bases in about 4 months, as you said. What led you then to base with others? Because you've been part of some fantastic bases. So kind of what led you to find other people, or did other people find you? How did that go?
Well, the way I got started, I was at what I call Charlie for quite a while. And while I was there, I ended up like over a year, maybe two. I'm trying to think here. No, it was like over a year because it wasn't until May 2015 I built my next big base, which was Echo. There was a Delta made in there, but Delta got created when I I found some path in the Nether, like the old chunks, and I started following it. I followed it past 1 million, and along the way, I'm like running out of food, and so I built a portal and went in the overworld. You know how you start trying to collect animals and breed them and stuff, and it ended up making a base. I've only gone back to it like twice since, but that was Delta. Kind of got stranded out there, a lonely base with not much there except for my standard house and a few pens of animals. So that was Delta. And I think I had a sense at one point when I was at Charlie, this would have been early 2015. I forget why, but I had a sense my base has been found. There's something out of place. Somebody's been here. And so I began making plans to move to another base, started scouting out stuff in a midst. And if I recall, I think it was the third incursion. Was that early 2015?
Oh God, the third one. Yeah, that was the end of April. I think April 28th, I think, to the 28th of May, 2015.
Okay. Yeah, it was right around that same time I decided to move to Echo, and there was the tell exploit that had come out at that time.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
And I suspect that's how my base camp Charlie was found. Because one day I came in, logged into Charlie, and a lot of stuff was blown up and destroyed. And I think my Reddit history reflects that. I didn't mind my base getting wrecked. I didn't mind the griefing so much. It's just that I had worked for over a year putting together a collection of villagers. And there had been a version change there during that time where there were old villagers. I had a large collection of them that couldn't be obtained anymore. And I had
Right.
really
Okay.
good trades on them. And somebody put a row of TNT down my villager trading hall and wrecked and
Damn.
killed them all. And I was like, I was just so mad. It was so stupid. You should have stole them. You should have blackmailed me. You could have, those villagers would be very, very valuable now. There's just not many left. So, yeah, base was wrecked. I patched it up and I decided to move on to the next one. And during the third incursion, there was also, I had a couple friends join me at Charlie. There was a new guy who had struck up an acquaintance with me over chat, and I invited him to visit the base. He logged in for a couple weeks, and I don't think I've seen him since. And a couple in real life friends visited there who log in like once every year or so, and I don't hear much from him anymore. You know how it goes with everybody playing games. They come and go.
Oh, definitely, yeah. So it was you that reached out to others, at least the one person on 2B that you didn't know in real life, then to kind of come and base with you.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
and while I was exploring areas for setting up became Base Camp Echo, I stumbled across a nice base, old base, like 2013, 2012 base on a mushroom island. And on there were signs from Brunillan and Pop Bob and a number of those really old players. And I recall I took some screenshots, and then one day I saw Brand was online, and I just PM'd him with the link to the screenshot of his old base. He was kind of in a panic about it. I told him, "Don't worry, I'll keep this, I'll keep this under wraps. I won't be wrecking this thing. It's a really nice base." And I think it was based on that several months later in the summer of 2015, after I'd gotten started building Basecamp Echo, I got an invite from Bran to join a nice big base that he'd started in the aftermath of the Tell exploit. The Tell exploit, was that like June 2015, as I recall?
Oh, that's a really good question, because funnily enough, I was just checking about the Tell exploit yesterday or 2 days ago. I've got, I wouldn't be able to find it now, I don't think, but I've got a GIF of me actually performing it on 3B3T, which at the time was run by Tristan and Pyro.
Yeah.
So I've got a GIF of myself because I posted it on the 8chan board for 2B2T. Basically just showing how to use it, that it's actually real, because I was in and out with emails with Housemaster at the time, because we had a weird relationship where I would kind of annoy the hell out of him, but occasionally he would send me the odd TPS lag report to kind of see why there was so much lag, because around that time, with like the 30-second rollbacks we were having, Tristan made 3B3T to kind of help us at least play together while all this crap was going on. And one of the things that I was telling him was, look, there's an exploit going on here where people are getting coords for bases. And he was like, oh, no, it's definitely not happening. There's no way that it could be done. So essentially, I recorded myself doing it on 3B3T and then emailed him the GIF of it actually working and me kind of narrowing down, a player at spawn and their exact coords.
Yeah, I think somebody started like overusing the Tell exploit because we started getting these messages. And one day, I think I independently kind of figured out what the deal was and how it worked. And I had notes. I had gone through and used it, and I found coords to several players in my neighborhood. And of course, I'd never done anything with it. And like a year later, I went back and checked, and I discovered, oh my God, there was a big, beautiful base at a certain location. I think it was the place Bran had been before he started King's Landing. I think I'd had the coords for it from the Tell exploit. And I think that's why he left that base and started King's Landing, was because he felt he was vulnerable to that Tell exploit.
Okay. Yeah, because the amount of exploits that we've had on 2B2T has just been insane. But that one was probably probably the worst because it did give you exact coordinates if you had more than one person online. I think it was if you did like the Minecraft :tel, it would kind of override the blocks on just the standard tel command. So you could send a tel message, which obviously came up as light grey instead of the pink that we're kind of used to on 2B2T. And you can kind of put a range on where the message has to be sent. So only people in that certain area would get the message. And then you kind of have 2 or 3 accounts on, you kind of ping different locations. Trigonometry was involved. And
Yeah, if
eventually,
you
you'd get like the exact points of a base.
yeah, I never used the trigonometry with that one. I Mine was much more crude. I just defined the blocks and make them smaller, and you got feedback. If you're the person running the tel command, you got feedback as to who got your whisper, and that's how you'd, infer
Yeah.
where people are. Yeah, I'm sure the people who I found, I probably annoyed them like 8 or 10 times, to narrow down it was really them. So
Yeah.
that was
I think
interesting.
I think that may have actually been earlier. I think that may have been. I think we're talking 2014 on that one.
I think
Um,
it was active during 2014, but I'm recalling where I was when I did it.
right.
I think. Oh, when did they finally disable it? I'm thinking it was 2015 when they finally disabled the tel
Y-
command.
It may have been, yeah, because I'd have to go back through my chat through my email history with Housemaster, the admin of 2B2T, to basically find that. Um,
Another big event in server history that we kind of glossed over was the long temp map during the horrible rubber banding episode. I'm thinking that was
yeah,
2014.
that was 2014. Yeah, because I was kind of in my 8th or ninth version of rebuilding 700 base at the time. Um, and yeah, that was definitely 2014. Yeah, I've just found the post that I posted on 8chan, kind of saying how it was done. And yeah, we're talking May, June of 2015 on that one.
So the temp map for the major rubber banding episode, that must have been in 2014. Was it late summer or was it spring? There's like several
It
weeks there.
was. I wanna say spring because it was kind of the end of spring going into summer because it lasted a hell of a long time.
And that was an interesting map. We had large biomes and we had a 1-to-1 nether ratio. And on that temp map, I actually built my kind of standard base, which
Okay.
someone found and destroyed.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was good fun. I got to know people a little bit more on that base because I've been kind of pretty much a loner prior to them.
Yeah, that
So
was that was the good thing I think about temp maps in a way, especially the April Fools events more so. But with the temp maps, it kind of put everyone together at least at the beginning. And when you had like a 10K world border, you were kind of forced to interact with people and work with people that you'd never really work with. So kind of at the end of that, you make kind of new friendships, and when the map then finishes and you kind of end up back on the main map, it kind of I think caused a lot of bases to be built just because you would kind of meet people that you'd never really talk to, if that makes
I think
sense.
that, yeah, I think that's very true. Yeah, I didn't base anybody off the temp map, but I know I became more familiar with a lot of people's names. Remember Victor? I became familiar with him from the temp map. Pyro
Okay.
killed me on the temp map.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it was good, fun stuff.
Oh, definitely. Which Victor was that? Was that Victor 96?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He kind of posted about the trigonometry side of some of the exploits as well, because I know he was big into math and stuff like that. So
Yeah, really
yeah,
sharp guy.
he helped out a lot with that. Yeah. So you've kind of mentioned some of the bases that you were at, such as King's Landing, KGB. Did you want to kind of expand on maybe more bases that you've been in, perhaps even kind of how you found it basing with people? Because you have based with some big names, so you've kind of been around some big names, big bases. What's kind of your take on those experiences, if there's any experiences as well that this is a really long question, kind of like experiences that you remember that have really stuck in your head from certain bases?
King's Landing was an epic. epic event
Yeah.
for me.
That was a quick question. So sorry, that was a quick answer. So it sounds.
No, it needs expansion.
Yeah.
Bran had reached out to me. We had kind of made personal contact about me discovering his old Mushroom Island base. And one day he sent me an invite. Hey, I'm starting a base. You're invited to join us if you want. And I was always like, I got my nice solo base going on here. I'm pretty happy. But he kept inviting me, and I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So, and there was some big names there, people I'd known. There was Pop Bob and Tristan and Clyde were there, and Khaleesi, and
Okay.
Oremonger was there. Oh yeah, Oremonger. He's one of my oldest associates on 2B. Somewhat controversial guy.
Yeah.
Um,
You could say that.
yeah, and one of the more interesting people I've come across.
Definitely. I mean, I know as an outsider from kind of watching that base take place. Seeing that there was Oremonger, Tristan, and Clyde at one base, it kind of made me pay attention to it because I knew that that was going to be an interesting experience.
Well, I got invited there, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to. Pretty much played with one account back then, and I didn't want to leave my other bases, so I actually made my main alt, which is named the Artisan of 2B2T, because at that base, everybody was calling themselves the blank of 2B2T, so the something. There was the king of 2B2T, there was the queen of 2B2T, there was the bishop of 2B2T. Everybody was, and I followed the same format. I was kind of late to the game, but I called myself the Artisan of 2B. All the good names were taken. So I took that account there, and I saw Oremonger had built this. I was kind of a late arrival to the base. A lot of things were already built up. The big dragon overhead had got a good start on it, and Oremonger had built the world's biggest item sorter.
Yeah.
That thing was just an epic piece of redstone. If I came within view distance of it, my frames per second would just crash. I could barely move.
I think that's like the only kind of feedback I've ever heard about that sort of like everyone that's been there, even especially like Silver Crown King. The second that you went near it, it would just destroy your client. So that must have been one hell of a device.
Yeah, well, technically it worked, and Orr kept saying, "Well, I don't have major frame drops on my computer," and which I'm sure that was true. I'm sure he hit every night's computer, but it worked. I mean, you could dump all sorts of things in there, and it would sort it out. So basing there was interesting because the different personalities that were at that base. You had Pop Bob, Clyde, Tristan, Silver. Some other people who I should be mentioning. Khaleesi was there. And I'm sure some good names of good friends I just can't recall off the top of my head. But that was interesting. But there was tension in there, and there was fighting, and there was strain. And at one point, Tristan apparently inadvertently leaked the coords to the base, and it was out. And I had only been there for a couple weeks, and the show was over. And it was decided we're gonna, they decided to grief the whole thing, tear it down before anybody else could. And that was the start of a whole lot of drama.
Yeah. Did you want to go into that a little bit and kind of how those events played out from that point?
Well, as I recall, I think the destruction of King's Landing was late summer 2015, like early fall, maybe September. And from there, the group, there was a series of other bases that some of us went to, like temp bases, in anticipation of the next big base. And that next big base we migrated to was KGB, which I think got started it was late 2015, like October, November, December, something like that.
Okay, that was Kino Rana's base, wasn't it?
Yeah, Kino was there, Satan was there,
Yep.
Bran was there. And we kind of got started. And for me personally, at that same time, after we just had the Tell exploit a few months prior, from talking with some people, I became interested in what was called the Thunder exploit, where your client was sent coordinate information about where every lightning strike hit on 2B. And I've never dug deeply into the game code, but I did notice that on Worst, there was this feature for the thunderhack that when lightning struck somewhere, your client wouldn't give you chords, but it would trace a ray at a block at the edge of your view distance in the direction
Yeah.
of where the lightning struck. And I just hit upon the idea of, okay, I'll run 2 instances of worst at one time, wait for a lightning strike to hit somewhere on the server at the same tick, and try to, on both clients, try to get my cursor to point in the direction of that ray, that trace ray, and just record the angles that I'm posting at. And then took paper and pencil, and I worked out the trigonometry of where lightning would struck. And there was this nice place that I saw in the vicinity of the confluence of uh, a mesa biome and an ocean. I thought, that looks like a nice place to build a base. I'm going to go check out those chords. And in the process of walking there, I went to my original spot, and I'm like, this pinpoint, there's nothing here, but there's those nice biomes like 1K away from here. That's where I would build a base if I was going to base here. And I walked in that direction, and I stumbled across Aureus City. Yeah, and I was just blown away by as I approached it from the north side. This is a beautiful, beautiful base. I wonder who bases here. I kind of walked around the perimeter, and I walked up by the ocean. And there I saw a big, beautiful gold farm that I recognized because I had been discussing gold farms in chat. I'd actually built one. And so I was interested in the technical details of how to make it better. And I recognized that because there's a guy named Cainslaw had showing me pictures of his, and I'm there and I'm seeing it in the flesh, and I took a screenshot, and I noticed Cain's was online, and I messaged him a link to a picture.
Yeah.
And I think poor guy, he probably had a heart attack when I sent him that. And I immediately followed up with a promise, I'm not going to hurt it, I'll keep this thing safe. And that's how I pretty much strong-armed my way onto Aureus City.
Oh, amazing. Okay, because I do remember when you arrived, because I think it was around the time where it was kind of just approaching morning in the UK. And I remember waking up, and the Skype group was just absolutely exploding with messages. And I was like, oh God, like what is happening? And there's like a picture of like Kane's posting a picture that you posted saying, oh my God, there's a guy at the base. And yeah, no, being from kind of on the other side of that, that was definitely an interesting time of kind of having someone turn up, them claiming to have just like found the base through some exploit, then us being worried if anyone else is going to find the base. And yeah, no, that was definitely a cool time, but it turned out really well, I think, because there was you and someone else, wasn't there, that came?
Yeah, another base mate from King's Landing, who yeah, and he'd verified the coordinates himself. So, and he'd been looking at the thunderhack as well. So, and after I showed up there, I felt kind of bad because I felt like I'd kind of strong-armed my way in. I mean, it's not like you could tell somebody to leave for fear of them leaking the cords.
Yeah.
And so I was there, I tried to contribute. Built my little ranch there on the east side of the base, trading hall. And then his name escapes me right now. What was his name? Who also came from King's Landing?
Was it Dork?
Yeah, Dorkamata.
Dorkamata? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dorkamata, yeah. He had some really nice building tools that he developed, little things to go along with his client. And he built some of them. I think he built the tall glass structures that were in the ocean off the base, right?
Yes,
really
yeah, those
beautiful
kind of glass spirals, the blue and the pink one.
Yeah. Yeah, Aureus City was a really nice place to base. Of course, you were there.
Yep.
Canes and Spartan got to know everybody at that base. So
yeah, that was a lot of fun actually, because I remember it was kind of thanks to the fact that Dorkamada was there that my Colosseum got built, because he was kind of testing one of his clients, and kind of, I guess we all kind of helped out at the base with kind of testing this client, which allowed us to do a lot of interesting things, and one of them really helped us kind of build the Colosseum really quick, which was going to be an impossible task if we were just doing it manually. So yeah, no, that was really good. And I mean, I suppose of all kind of the people online who played 2B2T at the time, I think we kind of really lucked out by having you two guys come rather than, perhaps two other players that may not have been so So peaceful, let's say.
Yeah, that was a really nice experience for me. I loved the whole Aureus thing. It seemed the King's Landing thing was so stressful, so much tension, so much political intrigue.
Mm,
And Aureus, we didn't have it to that degree until later on in the story when the
yeah,
Cancer Chan episode happened. That happened.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. That definitely did happen. That was that was an interesting one. Yeah.
yeah,
I think that some people may definitely want to forget, but yeah, no. I think for some time we definitely didn't let them kind of forget what had what had happened. Yeah, no, that was an interesting one. So you were kind of mentioning, you just touched on a point about the kind of politics, and not so much infighting, I guess probably isn't the correct word, but definitely politics of certain bases, and that's kind of something that, in my experience, has kind of really underlined 2B2T. There's this kind of underground area of 2B2C that's not in public chat, but it's perhaps in the Skype chats and the party chats, which at the time we had on 2B2C, and we kind of speak in private groups. Um, the kind of politics in there that affected bases, expanding or falling. Players who at one time liked each other, turning against each other, or the other way around. The politics was definitely strong. And I know earlier you did touch on kind of the politics of certain bases that kind of also led to the pre-Russia kind of thing. Because obviously before Russia came, we were kind of in the midst of a huge kind of conversation, I guess, as to things that were going on 2B2T. And I know you were heavily involved in that. Just I've kind of got like your Reddit posts up at the minute, and you were kind of heavily involved in what was going on at the time. Did you want to kind of go into that in terms of how your your stay at certain bases kind of, you saw kind of a lot of things that players didn't see? Is that
well,
something you wanted to go into?
yeah, sure. The weird thing about being at Aureus is Aureus was a blackout base. You didn't talk about being there. You didn't talk about the base's existence.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the old crew from King's Landing had coalesced around KGB, another base that was being started. And I found myself, excuse me, in the awkward position of being in two very different bases with, there's, at least from my perspective, there was like a schism in the 2B2T community between two groups. It was Aureus seemed to be made up of people by and large from one group that, how to describe this? What was the base you were at before then?
Asgard?
Asgard
Was
2.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
yeah, that was before. Yeah, yeah.
Aureus was like an Asgard 2 base. And then there was the whole Bran and Pop Bob
Hmm.
thing.
I guess
Kino.
on the
Yeah.
back of the Asgard thing, I think it was probably Valk that was the original kind of group that kind of splintered, and then some went into um, Asgard, because there was that whole Valk versus another group right back in like 2012, 2013, which
Ah,
kind of was the back end of Asgard, because a lot of people that were Asgard were Valk members, I guess you could say. Just people who based together that kind of knew each other, I guess.
yeah. Well, I guess I have a hard time drawing that line is everyone associates Valk with Sato 86.
Yeah,
And Sato ended up being one of the leaders at KGB. So
yeah,
anyway, this schism, I'm trying to think, okay, which two names would you represent as the
yeah.
figureheads in the schism? I guess I would put you, James, on the Aurea side, and
Yeah.
I don't know who would have put on the other, maybe Kino or Bran on the other.
Probably Bran.
Yeah,
Kino, I don't know. I kind of, at one point I got on well with Kino, and then I don't know what happened, if people were telling him things about me. I don't know. We never really spoke that much, and then next thing I knew, he was kind of against me, I guess. But yeah, no, I think me and Bran were definitely more vocal towards each other in chat, I think. Yeah, that's probably a good example.
so yeah, I found myself, I'm in two different bases, in two different camps, so to speak, and I'm kind of like, I'm historically been kind of a loner, so I'm just trying to neutrally watch this stuff and see what happens. Yeah, so it's an interesting situation, and then at KGB when that got started, word got put us at the base that we weren't. We were supposed to. This was early 2016. We were told there's something in the pipeline, something coming along with the version change. We can't build at KGB right now. Don't log in there. There's an exploit afoot, but don't worry about it. We're going to be beneficiaries of this exploit. And I found it very frustrating because I wanted to get building there and stuff, and everybody's kind of being told, there's an exploit afoot, but not being let in on the thing. I just found it really frustrating. And then in early 2016, we had the change from 1.8 to 1.9. That was a very significant upgrade because when 1.9, you were no longer going to be able to craft gapples, enchanted golden apples. And so
Yeah.
I think I logged many hours on multiple accounts during the winter of 2015-16, leaving my alts AFK, grinding
Yeah.
out more gold at gold farms to make as many gapples as possible because we weren't going to be able to craft them in the future. And at that point, there hadn't been a good dupe in years. I think been a couple of years. And basically, during my whole 2B2T career, there hadn't been a dupe, at least a big one that I'd seen.
Right. Okay. Yep.
And I guess from my perspective, I assumed, what I'd seen so far is probably what the future is going to hold. Maybe Mojang was going to get their stuff together and maybe they'd killed off dupes for the foreseeable future. Of course, now with hindsight, we look back. Since then, there's been tons of dupes, and all our efforts to make mass quantity of gapples were kind of silly because everybody's just duped them many times over since. But at the time, it was a serious effort put into gold farms and gold farming. So yeah, KGB got started. Then the 1.9 upgrade hit, and it just seemed like there was some bases got hit. I was friends with Oremonger, sort of friends. I based them at King's Landing and KGB. Oremonger was a very outspoken anti-racist, which is a kind of it seemed unusual for 2B2T.
Yeah, I think I think that's probably what his maybe not racism, his anti-bigotry kind of as an umbrella term, I think
Yeah,
definitely is what put the target on his head and made him a point of contention for a lot of people. Because obviously the whole point of 2B for a lot of people was the exact opposite of that.
yeah. 2B for many people it's the place where you're free to express taboo ideas. And I always took the position that I sentimentally agreed with Ormonger's perspective, and everybody because 2B is a free place, you can say what you want. Yes, you are free to make accounts that say Heil Hitler 24 hours a day, and other people are free to speak out against that. And I
Yep.
just thought
Yep.
Ormonger was fully justified. He was within his rights to speak out against this stuff as much as he wished. It was part of the freedom of the server. It's the only way freedom can be stable is if people have freedom of expression to counter what they find distasteful, even if at the same time you allow distasteful speech to happen. So I thought Oremonger's anti-bigotry was an essential part of the yin and yang of 2B, part of what held it all together.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, there was always two sides to everything, weren't there?
Yeah. And that put me on the wrong side of some of my fellow players, some of my fellow basemates at KGB. But
Yeah, that was interesting because it wasn't just because especially with Ormonger at the time, well, I suppose even with him, but it was always other people that were nowhere near you or in your kind of friendship groups, kind of in air quotes, that always, were at odds with you. But when it became people within the base, that's when the fun begins, I think.
yeah, there was a lot of, I mean, in Oremonger, he takes a very serious stance with this. He does not, or at least at the time, I shouldn't speak for him, but my perception of what he did is he took a very hard line with anything that even smacked of racism. He didn't tolerate even the ironic joke. And I think that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. There's a lot of tension. And so in early 2016, when the 1.9 upgrade hit, Oremonger's bases were wrecked. They were sought out and they were destroyed. I think Clyde and Tristan have talked about, they used some exploits or what they call backdoors to find it. And that kind of raised an awareness on the server that, okay, some people on this server the whole time have had some sort of powerful access that other people haven't had. There's a sense.
It was that experience, I think, because I that kind of triggered things for me in the sense that I was in the Discord chat where Allmonger's clock base was kind of griefed,
Yep.
So a Discord chat was made. Was it Discord or was it Skype? And there was a chat that was made, and basically opened with Tristan posting a picture of Oremonger actually AFK at his clock. And I remember thinking to myself, that's weird, that's odd that he obviously didn't notice, or maybe he, wasn't in the room or whatever. But then his exact cores were found, and it was also the time when the bed TP was a thing. So obviously
Yeah.
that allowed people to head to a place in the nether, sleep, kill yourself, wake up in the overworld, 8 times away at those chords, and it allowed you to jump very quickly to bases. And yeah, I remember that kind of like struck a chord with me, I guess, seeing, because it wasn't the first time pictures like that were posted of bases where I kind of thought, how could you get there and see it first of all without them noticing? But yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, you were saying.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was a sense that in the community that some people had like the inside track. They were given like OP access or something.
Hmm.
And then when confronted, there was blanket denials. No, nothing like that has happened. Nothing has ever
You're a
happened.
conspiracy
You're a
theorist.
conspiracy theorist. You're
That was the one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I became the target of what I consider gaslighting by some members of the community, where they told me I was crazy and I was a whack job conspiracy theorist for pointing out the obvious. Somebody here is abusing some sort of either a backdoor or maybe it's a front door admin access. I don't know. I can't tell, but something's up.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, like, I was sitting at spawn watching the account, server operator, funnily enough, was actually the name of the account, flying around in creative, using world edit to create 3x3 obsidian highways. Kind of, yeah, like, what was that, like the beginning of 2016, as you're saying?
Yeah, well, that account showed up at King's Landing, and I always interpreted the legit admin account because they actually did some work to change some settings in the server. There's back and forth discussion with him. That account showed up at King's Landing and was one of the funniest things I've seen in chat on 2B2T. It was just a gas
Yeah, I
at
think I saw the
Oremonger's
screenshots
sorter.
because
Yeah,
Coconut 4 was at the base as well, wasn't he?
yeah, I think so.
Coconut 4, because I remember him showing me some kind of screenshots of that op account, the OP account, kind of making configurations and calling certain people at the bases certain names. Yeah, that was quite funny.
Yeah. And then near that time, after the the KGB base fell in early 2016, when somebody leaked the chords of the base, and Tristan and Clyde showed up and griefed it all. And I had started one of my little ranches there. I hadn't got very far, had built the house. The whole thing was wrecked. It was up in smoke. And I just had this bad feeling, okay, here's another base I went to with this group, and it's wrecked within a very short period of time. And then Bran invited Oremonger and I to a base he wanted to build out in what's called the lands at 4 million out. And the bed exploit was working at the time, so we rode the nether beds, Oremonger and I did, out there, and we started moving supplies to a location to start building a base. And there was some sort of conflict brewing there. And long story short, members of, I think it was Talo, who was a member of what's now known as Nerds Inc., which Sato at the time had labeled the Tyranny. Yeah, they showed up there, and I got killed by a 32K weapon. All the supplies we moved into position were chests were broken, and a lot of stuff was lost. That was very, because I was there with Bran and Oremonger and myself. We're going to start a base, and it was killed in its infancy, and somebody was using 32K weapons and things. We didn't know the whole story of the back doors. I think for a lot of members of the 2B community in April of 2016, there was a sense that, well, when a certain subset of the player base has special access to things, that kind of ruins the magic of the game,
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's when there was a big drop off in people playing. A lot of people went to other servers like Constantium.
Yep.
And it was kind of a dark time for the server. And then early 2016, of course, we had the TheCampingRusher showed up one day. And that was really interesting. And at Aureus, we had our base mate with his almost never used YouTube channel, Fit MC. And I remember I was like, I think in the first 12 subscribers to his channel. And then the
Right.
Camping
Okay.
Rusher came out,
Yeah.
and Fit and Sato got together, started making these videos, and made a nice YouTube narrative out of it. And yeah, the rest is history. My base mate Fit, the guy who built his radio tower next to my ranch house, suddenly became YouTube famous. That was surreal. That was just
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
that was one of the most epic things that's ever happened in my
How
Minecraft.
quick that turned as well. Because I mean, I know at first he made kind of like some meme videos, and then the next thing I know, like I'm going back on his channel and he's doing some live stream about 2B2T, and it's got like what, like 2 million views or something like that. I mean, you weren't really involved too much with the whole Russia thing, were you? Because I know a lot of at the time, obviously there wasn't many older players left because of the whole break. But I know you weren't really at the forefront of the whole Russia war, shall we say?
Yeah, I've never been one to try to grab the limelight. And I did try to play. I would back then before we had the veteran queue, you just it took sheer determination, willpower to log into the server. I remember waiting in the one queue. There's like 2,000. I remember being number 2,000 in line. With thousands and thousands of YouTube viewers are trying to get onto the server.
Oh yeah, because I mean, obviously before that there wasn't even the queue, so it would just say 2B2T is full. You couldn't even log in because all the slots were filled, and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was after Rusher that we ran into the whole situation with the fall of Aureus, and yeah, that's been covered on Fitz videos. But that was pretty interesting to see that our base mate Snacky had got
Yeah.
a friend and been a little bit careless with he'd kind of violated the blackout base rules that Keen had put in place. Mentioned that the base existed to a friend. Yeah, and we suddenly became aware at the base that too much information had gotten out. Base hadn't been found yet, but it was bound to fall sooner or later. And yeah, we decided to wreck the base before the world did.
We Asgard 2'd the base, as I
Yeah,
always like to say, because obviously Asgard 2 was a base where Oremonger showed up at, who at the time was kind of very much against many of the players at at the base. So we kind of destroyed it, and I guess yeah, I just like the term.
yeah. At the time, I put so much sweat into that villager trading hall. Could not bring myself to destroy it. I thought,
Yeah,
no,
that
I'm gonna
was
leave
that
it
was
here.
amazing. That was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I had pretty much had all the villagers with all the trades, and good trades at the time. It took many, many hours of work on villagers, sorting them out, looking at their trades, making determination. So I had a really nice collection. A lot of sweat went into it, and so my ranch kind of stayed there for a while. But then on Netta T's channel, I recall her and some of her viewers showed up at that my base and started some kids named Panda started killing my villagers, and I regretted then and there. I wish I had killed every one of them myself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
yeah.
thing. It's so difficult to do it to your own creation because I remember you being online for like days and days, but perhaps even weeks and weeks on non-stop getting these villagers sorted.
A lot of
But
my time online was actually AFK, just letting my account go back and forth in the gold farm. But yeah, there
yeah,
was some time
yeah,
spent there that winter.
and yeah, to I suppose have someone else make a video of them destroying it is definitely worse than you kind
Yeah,
of doing it yourself, and maybe the ridicule that comes from other players, that you destroyed your own base, but still.
yeah,
So kind of going through your posts on Reddit, we kind of go from the whole admin drama of early 2016 to the Russia joining, and then there were also some kind of I don't know how to say it, back and forth between you and the Vortex Coalition, who are in 2015 during the third incursion consisted of two people just spamming and essentially being laughed off the server. But then I suppose they really took advantage of a lot of old players took advantage of Russia and his fans joining, kind of changing their personality, shall we say, to kind of be a bit more welcoming to people, which was interesting to see. But the Vortex Coalition, I think, definitely did the best. Hats off to them. They really played that well with the new people that joined. They really grew at an exponential rate. But there were some things that kind of happened between you and them, because I've seen some kind of post, hashtag disband Voco being
oh
posted
yeah.
by
I
you on
started
the
that
subreddit.
hashtag.
So yeah, what kind of led to that, and what was that about?
Well, that kind of went back to one of the things I had tried to do on 2B in my career is I like the idea of fast nether travel using vanilla means. And I'd always thought that if, regardless of what exploits get patched, horses through the nether are going to be hard to beat for a form of transport. So I had taken it upon myself to, number one, I started a huge horse, donkey, and mule breeding program, trying to get the very best, fastest animals I could that even under a fully vanilla environment, if every exploit is patched, I'll still be able to provide people with fast transport. And
Yeah.
part of that was I'd done a lot of work in the nether highways. I expanded a lot of the highways to make them horse passable. And I was really frustrated with this Vortex Coalition group, which you're right. Back in 2014, when they started, they were purely a spam operation, a meme. And when Rusher showed up with his minions, they actually got some people to follow them. Now, I didn't have a problem with them becoming popular, getting followers, but I was just kind of irritated with the idea of here these guys got all these people in their group. They could do something cool, productive, interesting, but it seemed like at that time anyway, they were mostly interested in the purpose of Voco was to expand Voco, period, you know. And one particular thing really just ticked me off, and that was somebody posted something called Project Spoderman, where they had gone down another highway and just filled the whole thing full of cobwebs, which, you know, in and of itself, not that big a deal. You take a
Yeah.
shears, you cut them out.
It's kind of a
not too,
prank that you would kind of see on 2BTT as well. It's
yeah,
kind of like something that is, yeah, it's not too bad.
yeah. And I just ticked me off. Here we got all these new rushers showing up. These guys could be good contributing members of the server, do their thing, you know, in the face of the whole game on 2B, as I see it, is you try to do your thing, play your game the way you want to play it, and you have the challenge of an intelligent opponent. You just got some people are just going to always be contrarians and try to wreck your stuff, and they're going to try to, you know, wreck whatever you build. There's always a challenge against that. And I was like, okay, the Voco, as far as I could tell, as wholeheartely at that time had signed up to serve as the dark side, you know, the force of destruction, and there's always a tension between creation and destruction.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, this is a waste, and it just made me mad. And I just in early December of 2016, I started I just put out some Reddit posts to express my frustration with that, and that kind of snowballed. They kind of retaliated and put out some posts, and I think they put out too many posts, and Housemaster started removing their posts from the subreddit, and then Sato weighed in with some really interesting memes, and we went back and forth, and it kind of turned into a war. It turned into a focus of drama for a while, and then I forget how it happened, but we kind of made peace. Yeah, I got in a voice. I think it was Hermetic Lock was the one who actually kind of got us talking, and I got in a voice chat with Oreo and Coltsned, and we had some good conversations, and we kind of buried the hatchet by and large.
Yeah.
So, it was an interesting episode in 2B history there. So, yeah, the history is out there in the subreddit for anybody who wants to, dig through it. But,
What hasn't been deleted by the admins anyway?
yeah, at least my posts weren't. Thanks, House.
Yeah, no, I mean looking through it, yeah, they're all there. So kind of to round this off, what is it that you're up to now then? Because obviously Russia's come, we've had 2.5 years pretty much. We're approaching the end of the year now, so we've got about 2.5 years under our belt of Russia being on 2B2T, the French being on 2B2T, and so on. So where is Yellowstone Joe now on 2B?
Well, right now, Yellowstone Joe's account is near spawn, and I am doing a little thing I'm contributing in my own way to the 7th incursion. It's the first incursion I've ever been involved with.
Okay.
And how I got there, in the aftermath of the fall of Aureus, I ended up getting invited to a base called Mecca, Block Game Mecca, and there was like a year there where I just was not very active in Minecraft around the server. And I ended up, I got invited there and I was part of the Discord, but I only visited with the alt, with the base alt. I'd log in, take a look around the base. Slappin', by the way, is a really good base leader.
Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't participate. I didn't do much. Boadekan, Kane's Law, in the aftermath of the fall of Aureus, invited me to his. It started off as a little stash for items that she just kind of grew into a very, very big hole under the ocean and turned into this beautiful, beautiful base, Boadekan. Yeah, Kane's Law, who, by the way, is one heck of a good base leader. Yeah, he'd invited a group of people. Boadekan grew into a very large, very beautiful base. I can't claim much credit for much that was built on there. I did build a pig spawner back when we had pig spawners were available after a dupe. And of course, those got nerfed during, I think it was the 1.12 upgrade. So anyway, I was at Boadekan and I was kind of I was in the chat at Block Game Mecca. And within a short period of time, both those bases were discovered, their coords were revealed, and they were griefed and destroyed. And I think I was the only person who was in both Skypes. I guess one was a Skype, the other one was a Discord. And there was one base member, Beardler. I just, from comparing his behavior in both of them, it just something about it seemed too similar. And the guys at Mecca had strongly suspected that this guy had been behind the grief there, and they had actually caught on to him sooner than I did. And when I look back on what had happened at Boadekan, I suspected he had been behind that as well. Boadekan had fell before Mecca.
Okay.
And yeah, anyway, I'd kind of intuited that he had been behind it, and there's a group of us started digging into the evidence. Long story short, yeah, there's a post up on the subreddit 4 months ago where Kane's Law had essentially forced Beardler to confess that he had been behind the destruction of those bases. And that was in a way, it felt good to finally realize we had proof to what had been a nagging suspicion. Of course, Beardler had been he had been an admin on the museum, which I guess opens up a whole nother subject about the in 2B2 history, and that is the story of the vault in the museum.
Yeah, yeah.
I think you're more familiar with some of that than I am. But
yeah, I mean, I had a helping hand with the vault. Kind of, it obviously wasn't my idea, or the creation of it had nothing to do with me. But yeah, I suppose helping, fix some bugs. I wrote some plugins at least for it to kind of help us teleport, back to the main area where you could then go into other bases and stuff. So yeah, no, that was a good project.
Yeah, the vault. I'm not sure when the vault got started, but I got invited to it sometime when I was at Aureus.
Okay.
Yeah, and of course and then after the fall of Aureus, I know the vault never went public.
No, it didn't.
Fit had announced the presence of the vault. There had been plans to make it public, and it never quite got there. And I think it was mostly a technical concern about the security of coordinates and keeping it secure.
I think it was a mix, because obviously the admin obviously was I can't really speak for him, but there was a lot of things going on, moving, and there was a lot of things going on, I suppose, in real life that didn't let it. A lot of people said, I know there was something that Fit brought up as well. I don't know whether it was Fit or someone else about the donation kind of side of things, but that was never a problem. It was always free for us, and the server running was never an issue in terms of money. Yeah, I think it was never quite the right time for it to come online, and I think when it was a good time for it to go public, I think the museum had just started. So yeah, there was again some drama behind there, because some bases had obviously were found on the museum to also have the same portals that were on the vault. So there'd been some wild downloading going on and stuff like that. But yeah, that's like a whole other hour of conversation, I think.
Long story short, the museum got started by pretty much a world downloading a bunch of stuff from the vault. Jay Dinger and Autopia, I think they had some frustration that the vault was an exclusive club to which they didn't have entrance, and the museum got started. And as the museum unfolded, it got running. It was doing the purpose. People were basically archiving bases there. One of the admins, Beardler, was active in the museum, and he turned out to be the guy who betrayed two of the largest bases on 2B.
Yeah. Was that known that he had betrayed the bases when he was made an admin? Because I'm not too hot on my museum kind of history because I've really
n-
not that I haven't
no,
paid any attention, but obviously not being a integral part, well, integral, a big part of 2B anymore. I kind of don't
no,
really know much about it.
no. Beardler's downfall was when he finally was busted for betraying those bases, and he'd been an admin for some time on the museum. And I had reached out to Jay Dinger a couple, maybe number of days before the confession, and Offtopia and Jay Dinger had pretty much, excuse me, written me off as a conspiracy theorist.
Right.
Like,
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
this has happened before. And then Jay Dinger, to his credit, the actual owner of the museum, he had, when the truth came out, he not only banned Beardler from the museum, but he actually shut down that server for several months. So, and I understand it's back online again now, but I don't know that for 100%. I haven't, well, maybe I have visited once. I think it's back online now, but I haven't been on there recently. So that
Right.
was another interesting piece of drama
Mhm.
in 2B history.
The beginning of August 2015 was when the vault began.
Ah,
Yeah, just I've just kind of been looking through some old screenshots, and I can kind of see us just unloading an unholy amount of TNT, kind of as our first test to stress the server. And yeah, that was right at the start of August 2015.
yeah. And now I think about it, that's kind of that schism that I noticed in the 2B community. It was somewhat healed on the vault. I mean, Silver, who was
Mm,
at King's Landing,
yeah.
and then,
I think with the politics of 2B, I want to say 2B 2T, but they've kind of followed on to Constantium as well. So let's just say the politics of Minecraft um, kind of seems to be where if you're friends with someone who has a problem with someone else, you have a problem with that person too. And I think that is what definitely escalated a lot of schisms between the groups, shall we say, where it just started between two people, and then like people had to take sides.
yeah, you're probably right about that.
I think you've been lucky because you've kind of been on both sides of a lot of drama, which, as you said, has gained you some maybe unwanted attention at times by certain players. But yeah, it's definitely something that happens and can escalate drama or turn things that should be over in 5 minutes into maybe months of drama.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So, yeah, the whole, yeah, I've gotten to see quite a few. I've had an interesting perspective, I think, in the 2B community in the, I guess it's what, 4.5 years now I've been here. So that's been interesting. I think the idea of the server anarchy, where people hear the word anarchy and they think, okay, it's total chaos and nothing but destruction and kids running wild. But I'll say from my perspective, there is another side to that. It's a consequence of not having a limited border on the map, and that is you do have a way of getting out and being safe from the chaos, and that's just distance.
yeah.
You can travel out and you can be relatively safe, and it's just a really challenging way to play the game. Um,
It's
the
definitely
sub
unique in a certain way because I know at the time of 2B2T when we used to play before it grew in popularity, 2B2T was really the only anarchy server like that you just could not get banned on.
There used to be a tagline on the 2B2T subreddit. It was Minecraft the way it was meant to be played.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
And I think that's really true. And now, the concept has now followed into some other servers, often referred to as the 2B clones. You got, Constantium, and you got the 4B, 9T, other ones. To me, it's just something about that map. The original map is, it's just a lot of history there. And I still find that somewhat appealing. Although the culture has changed quite a bit since the Rusher invasion. And now the Rushers are, a lot of those people that joined in June 2016 are now considered, old players.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, they've kind of they've made their own history on the server, I guess. They've been, the new players kind of in our perspective, I guess, they've kind of started their I don't know, I kind of don't want to sound, gay or anything, but they've kind of they've started their own legacy, you know what I mean?
yeah,
They're kind of known for things now. You've got Beardler who is known for such and such, and you've got, the other guys who were known for, other things and creating websites. And That's something that's always interesting. The things that kind of are created, the kind of creation that 2B inspires in people in terms of the coord's website that people have made. I think 2B2T Online was another one. YouTube channels, 2B2T News and stuff like that. It's yeah, so it's always interesting. And I mean, these are all new. These are all post Russia players essentially that are doing all of this. So yeah, I think it evolves. Whether or not we think it's good or bad is, I suppose, something else. But I mean, I don't think the fact that Russia's came changed the server in terms of how we knew it. I personally think we did that very well ourselves in terms of the people that we took seriously, the people we listened to, the people we ostracized when we played before the invasion. Only listening to perhaps maybe people that had opinions the same of ourselves. I think that began to shape a lot of the community and I suppose the atmosphere on 2B.
There is
And
one point I want to
yeah,
raise about the 2B2T culture, and I think an often overlooked thing is Dunbar's number. In sociology, there's a number you look for, the maximum number of people that can be a member of the maximum number of people that can be in a community where it still feels like a community. And
yeah,
I think they say in different contexts, the number is estimated to be like 100 or 160 or 200 people. The group gets much larger than that, and we as humans just don't feel like we're a cohesive group anymore. And I think the biggest cultural change to 2B is that we went past Dunbar's number. And I think the incoming players now, although they're probably a little bit more diverse than what was in the past. I mean, 2B had been kind of a face punch 4chan type culture. And I think we're seeing the new group is more YouTube oriented, more Reddit oriented. And that's had an effect. But I think the biggest factor has just been there are more people. A lot of the older players, I've heard them, bemoan the loss of the sense of community that they once had. And I think it's often overlooked. It's just the number of people that are in it's bigger now. And that's why you see the rise of factions, so many discords with different groups on there. You won't see a discord, I don't think, that gets much past Dunbar's number before it fractures.
that's definitely true. Yeah, yeah.
Voco is probably the one that's come closest to it. They may have experienced this. They just can't keep you get too many people in, past 160 people, and people just don't feel like, they log in or start rubbing elbows, they start seeing more strangers and friends. It just doesn't feel it's all about the emotion, the feeling.
True. Yeah, kind of the closeness in a sense, I guess, as you mentioned. But kind of having a look, because I'm just having a look through a Discord now. I think this is the 2B2T Discord, the cancer chat version. I'm not sure who is the admin of this one, but it looks like 9B90. They have like an official Discord, I guess, which the admin runs, and that's got 1,365 people in as of right now. I
Yeah.
never noticed that until a couple of days ago that it had so many people in. Like I kind of wonder what it's like in there, but kind of
Yeah.
in the same breath, I kind of don't. I don't want to know.
Usually it's like the square root of that number is what is actually active people.
Yeah, yeah, I know definitely from hosting. I guess here's a self plug. The original, I suppose, Constantium Discord. There's a few hundred people in there, but there's only maybe 30 odd that are actually talking.
Yeah.
Same with the server, I guess. I mean, you look at how many people 2B2T has online. Like, not everyone is talking all the time. It's only the people that maybe are more well known that you kind of notice more, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, even when I joined 2B back in 2014, at that time, the statistic had been posted about how many people had logged in. It was tens of thousands then, and maybe, 10, what's the square root of 10,000? Like 100, we might have had, there might have actually only been like 1 or 200 active people in the 2B community
Oh,
at that
definitely.
time.
It was 70 something thousand
Ah,
when I left in April. Just having a look at a backup of the website that I made.
yeah.
It's about 79, I think, thousand. And we're looking at, I don't know when this last update was on the subreddit, but we're looking at 207,000 now.
Yeah. And now we have the paid queue, whereas you can't really be a regular paying $20 a month, which, that's going to be a filter. That's going to filter the community. You're going to have a certain segment come in there. And
Oh, definitely. I think a lot of people also left because of because of that. I know people left because of the air quote vet queue being taken away.
Yeah, that was a
That
big
just
cultural shift right there.
refused to even queue. Like they just said, screw it, I'm done.
Yep. So, yeah, it's been an interesting time, and I'm kind of curious to see what the future holds.
Yeah, well, it's been great talking to you.
Yeah.
It's kind of we've never really, I don't think, spoken before, other than online chat. So it's been good to kind of have this time with you. Is there anything that you kind of want to discuss or kind of put out there to everyone that's listening before you leave? If there's anything you're working on or anything you want to plug?
Not really. I think I tried to plug everything I wanted to plug.
Yeah,
Yeah,
nice, cool. Well, yeah,
just want to say hi to all my friends out there. I haven't mentioned your names enough, but yeah, Kane's Law and all the people I've based with. Yeah, these are the things that really enrich your life. Playing on the server, you do actually form some friendships, and yeah, it's a good time. Yeah, and likewise, it's finally good to hear your voice, James, after
thanks.
chatting with you all these years. Now I used to have a voice to put with the name. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, there we go. And probably finally, I guess, is going to be a segment that we end on for everyone. Do you have a message for the new players that perhaps didn't come with the Russia, or maybe even the French? Maybe they've just joined maybe a few days ago and they've stumbled across this video. Is there any kind of advice that you've learned over your time on the server that you wish kind of someone may have told you when you started?
Well, I guess my advice to anybody who starts would be just to be yourself. Don't try to role play too much. You, 2B, 2T is a place of freedom. You have the freedom to really just play how you want to play, and there's a number of constraints out there. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. You just have to decide that for yourself. And for every decision you make, for every action you take, there might be no rules, but there are consequences. So, and I think I see a lot of younger people sometimes get involved in some drama and situations that perhaps could have been avoided, probably causing some personal pain if they'd just kept in mind that, yeah, there are no rules here, but as everything in life, there can be a reaction. So, yeah, stay safe and have fun.
Great. That's absolutely amazing. Yeah, I wish someone told me that when I started.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Well, thanks very much,
Yep.
Yellowstone Joe, for also being the first guest on
Yeah.
the JR podcast.
It's been
And
great
yeah,
fun. Good
it's been
talking with
great.
you. All
You
right.
too.
Bye bye.
All right.